The Witcher. Originally a book series by Andrzej Sapkowski, it has 8 installments, the first one released in 1990. Spoiler alert if you don't want any spoilers for the book series or potentially the TV series. It was nice having you around, come back later. At the end of The Lady of the Lake, during the riots of Rivia, a pogrom broke out. I'm going to pause here and explain the word pogrom because I had to Google it myself. Originally a Russian word, but widely used in English apparently. It's an organized massacre of a particular ethnic group. Ethnic cleansing, genocide would have similar meaning. The humans in Rivia were trying to kill off the non-humans, and this is kind of a theme of The Witcher. The planet of The Witcher takes place on, which doesn't really have a name, is referred to as the world, used to be a world of elves. Then the dwarves came, and then the humans, and then the monsters. This all happened during the conjunction of the spheres, where the barriers between the worlds gets thinner. Now there has always been a lot of tension between the races. You especially see this in The Witcher 3, but we'll cover that when we get there. Geralt, ever the protector of the oppressed, intervenes and tries to stop the violence. In the chaos, he is fatally stabbed in the chest with a pitchfork by an angry peasant. Yennefer arrives and she uses up all her strength to try and heal him with magic, but she collapses from the exhaustion. We don't really get to know if she succeeded or if they both died. The game series sets out to answer the question of what happened after the pogrom in Rivia. And that puts us at the beginning of the first game.
His name was Geralt of Rivia. He was a witcher, a professional monster slayer. An unusual contract to lift the curse that held a monarch's daughter. It was enough to spend the night with the princess, dusk till dawn. If only she were not a deadly beast, a striga. The traitor responsible for the curse became the bait. Though gravely wounded, the Witcher lifted the curse and gained fame. The world changed with the coming of the Great War, the time of the sword and axe, the time of disdain. Geralt of Rivia disappeared, all but forgotten. But that's another story.
Geralt stumbles around disoriented. He collapses on the ground in an unknown location, somewhere between Rivia and Kaer Morhen. Rivia is down here, Kaer Morhen is up here, so he had to stumble around quite a distance. He is found by two witches, Eskel and Vesemir, who bring him back to Kaer Morhen, where he is further healed by Triss Merigold. Come it is, Triss, and stop hitting on Geralt, he's spoken for. Now, unfortunately for Geralt, but fortunately for the audience that may be unfamiliar with the Witcher series, Geralt has lost some of his memories. He knows his name, and he knows he is a Witcher, supposedly, so now he can be the one who speaks for the audience. And it's not weird that he doesn't know any of his abilities that he had in the books. Kaer Morhen. Soon after Geralt arrives at Kaer Morhen, a group of bandits named the Salamandra, led by three mages, the Professor, Azaja Ved, or in the opening, the Unknown Mage, and Savola attack Kaer Morhen. Savola is quickly defeated when he manages to trap himself in a ring with Geralt. I'm not trapped there with you, you're trapped there with me, Geralt thinks as he slaps Savola in the face with his sword. Azaja Ved and the Professor manages to get down to the basement, where the witches keeps all the cool stuff. But don't worry, because they have Leo on their side, the single most important character in The Witcher 1, nay, the Witcher series. He was born to a royal family. He had two brothers and one sister, all older than him, Neo, Cleo and Lawrence Fishburne. Neo ascended the throne, but he was not fit to rule. He insisted on wearing this odd shiny clothing that creaked a lot. Every time he was trying to make a point, his clothing creaked so much that nobody could hear what he was trying to convey. Tired of the never-ending creaking, his sister Cleo had him assassinated. Fearing that he and his brother would be next, Lawrence Fishburne took his brother Leo, the chosen flame of Navarkin, and fled. During their escape, Lawrence was shot by a crossbow, wielded by one of Cleo's men who was out training with crossbows. An accident? Doubtful. Foreshadowing? We'll get back to that. Leo managed to get away and was found in the forest outside Kaer Morhen by Lampert, malnourished and on the brink of death, not having eaten for 3 whole days. Lampert spent 5 months nursing him back to health, and begun... Let's see...
Leo, stop!
Oh, and his dad. That's unfortunate, he had such potential. Anyway, the Professor and Azaja Ved gets away with the witch's mutagenic formula, which is used to create new witches. Geralt and the others repel the attack, and most of the Salamandra retreat. The witches decide to split up, and Geralt heads to Vizima, the capital of Temeria, to track down the bandit group. Chapter 1. Outskirts Vizima. Vizima is in lockdown, so Geralt can't get into the city. He has stationed himself in a nearby town at an inn. Beasts are plaguing the town and Geralt needs to find out why. During the night, the beasts chase a woman and a boy named Alvin. Alvin manages to get to safety behind the walls surrounding the inn, but the woman does not. Geralt offers to help her and kills the beasts. After the scuffle, Geralt is approached by Shani, who tells him he should talk to the Reverend. The Reverend gives Geralt a ring that he forgets to put on, tells him to light up a few shrines scattered throughout the town to repel the beast, something that Geralt doesn't believe will help. But he indulges the Reverend. The Reverend also suggests to help 3 prominent villagers with their problems: Odo, Mikkel.
I am Melania, Blade of Mikela.
Shit.
And I have never known defeat. Strength. Extraordinary.
Okay, that was easy. Back to the Witcher. And hearken. Geralt goes around lighting the shrines, but to no avail, as he thought. The beasts remain. Then he goes and talks to the 3 villagers, while also looking for clues about the Salamandra. But because he has forgotten to put on the ring, they can't trust him. So they tell him nothing and give him no tasks. So he puts on the ring. Odo, the penny-pinching drunkard, has Geralt do some gardening while drunk. Mikkel...
I am Melania, Blade of Mikela.
Oh, fuck. Was tasked with clearing the crypt. But he's a dumb coward, so Geralt has to do it for him. In the crypt, Geralt finds a dead girl, and discerns that she's been poisoned. He tries to explore the crypt further, but he has forgotten to bring a torch, so he goes on a little side quest, rubbing all the villagers blind while looking for one. Back at the crypt, and now able to see, Geralt explores further into the crypt, and clears it of ghouls. And this time he remembers to grab the Ignisign from the shrine. Then he heads back to the bridge, where a group of Salamandra is harassing an alchemist called Kalkstein. Geralt kills the thugs and saves poor Kalkstein. The Salamandra was trying to get Kalkstein to give them his equipment. Geralt lets the guard know that the crypt is clear, and that he found a dead girl in there. The guard immediately knows who the girl is. Ilsa, a girl he's supposedly in love with. He claims Abigail the witch must have been the one to poison her. On his way to Harkin's shack, Geralt runs into a group of dickheads harassing a dwarf. He kills them, and it turns out that the dwarf is his old friend Zoltan Chive. Zoltan is in Vizima, looking for his friend that has gotten himself involved with a bad crowd. They were supposed to meet, but his friend never arrived. Harkin tasks Geralt with killing some drowners at night. Once the drowners are dealt with, Geralt is approached by some Skirtel, a group of non-human fighters tired of being oppressed. They tell Geralt they'll take the crates off his hands, and you can either defend the crates or give the crates to them. You get the chance to change your mind if you choose to defend the crates. If you choose to hand the crates off, you get no penalty, as they were promised to the Skirtel by Harkin. Now that you're done helping the villagers, you go back to the Reverend. He suspects Abigail has something to do with the beasts, so you go and investigate. Turns out Abigail has taken in the boy Alvin. She tasks you with getting some petals for a potion, so that she can get Alvin to remember something. Once that is done, Abigail tells you that she's not the one who set the beast upon the village. Geralt is at a dead end when it comes to hunt for the beast, so he goes and talks to the Reverend. He tells the Reverend that he's done all that he's been tasked with, and that he now needs information on the Salamandra. The Reverend tells him that the Salamandra is held up at the inn. Once he arrives at the inn, he finds that the Salamandra have killed the innkeeper, and they're now in the process of harassing Shani. One of them says they should do the same thing to Shani as the god Merkel did to the poor girl Ilsa, implying that he raped her. Geralt kills the Salamandra thugs and then heads to their true hideout in one of the village houses. If you visited this house before you know the location of the Salamandra hideout, it's an abandoned house with a skeleton on the floor. in the same place that a body is on the floor in the hideout. In the house there's a hatch leading down to a cave, where the true hideout of the Salamandra is. You confront some Salamandra there. They tell you some awful things about the villagers you've been helping, calling them rapists and murderers. You kill the Salamandra. Alvin shows up. Apparently he was handed to the Salamandra by the Reverend, which is pretty damning evidence that the villagers are terrible people. You knock down a wall, and behind it you find Abigail. She tells you all the awful stuff the villagers have done. The Reverend sending kids to the Salamandra, Harkin working with his Goetel, and Odo having killed his brother in his sleep. You get to decide whether you believe Abigail or not, and if you do, you for some reason have to sleep with her. Then you go outside where the villagers have gathered. You get a choice of either handing Abigail over to them or protecting her. I chose to protect her, and Geralt says this.
You have two options. Wait until I leave and then murder Abigail, but then I'll come back. I'll slay every lice-ridden peasant, anything that moves and can't climb a tree. Or you can try to lead honorable lives, clear your conscience, start again, like humans. The choice is yours.
Making it pretty clear what will happen if they hurt Abigail. He is willing to put her life at risk though, which is pretty weird. The villagers leave Geralt and Abigail to deal with the beast. Abigail dies during the attack because there are too many dogs to keep track of, and she can't defend herself for shit. Once the beasts are down, Abigail lives again. And then the villagers attack. You kill them, Abigail dies again, and then she lives again when you talk to her. If you had chosen to side with the villagers, the beast would likely have returned, as it's their horrible actions that brought it upon them, with the help of Abigail. Now it's time to enter Vizima. Geralt gets his hands on the pass of the Reverend's still warm corpse. He heads to the bridge where the guard, Milfred, said he would be at, and hands him the pass. But instead of getting Geralt into the city, the dirty rapist guard betrays him, who could have guessed, and gets him thrown in jail. Well, technically he got Geralt into the city, because the jail is located in the city, and now we're in Vizima.
A seed that will not sprout but burst into flames.
Huh, that's weird. Do all childs do that? Chapter 2. Vizima Temple Quarters, the Dike and the Swamp. Geralt finds himself in a jail cell after having stupidly trusted the corrupt rapist guard, Snickle. I guess he didn't really have a choice though. Geralt talks to an elf that is getting hanged the next day, and plays a nice game of dice with him, and he lets him win. I'm not bad at dice, I swear. Then Vincent of the city guard comes and offers the prisoners a deal. If they kill a cockatrice in the sewer, they're free to go. A fat prisoner that was previously trying to start a fight with Geralt jumps at the opportunity, and Geralt has to fight him so that the guards will let him go to the sewers instead. Geralt wins easily. Now, in the outskirts of Vizima, Geralt heard about a witcher called Berengar, who went through the area and didn't help that much. So when he's handed a silver sword, he naturally assumes that it belonged to Berengar, the only witcher he is aware of having been in the area. But there's no time to think about that now. Geralt has a cockatrice to kill. Down in the sewers, Geralt runs into a Knight of the Flaming Rose named Siegfried. Siegfried offers to help kill the cockatrice, and Geralt reluctantly agrees. They track down the cockatrice and kill it, and Geralt makes sure to cut off his head, so that he can give it to Vincent, who wanted it. Something that Siegfried suggests. It stinks, Geralt says, forgetting for a second that he's a witcher. On their way out of the sewers, Geralt and Siegfried are set upon by Salamandra assassins. How did they know that Geralt was going to be there? That needs to be investigated. Thankfully, Siegfried knows just the guy to go to, Raymond. But first Geralt needs to get his stuff at the jail. There he talks to Vincent and Jethro. Geralt asks about the sword, and Vincent tells him that he got it off a guy named Thorla. Oh, and don't go to the warehouse after midnight. The one right next to the inn. I'll mark it on your map so that you know where not to go, Vincent says. Jethro wants some crack cocaine, or fistek as he's known as in the Witcher universe, or he's not willing to talk. Which is annoying because Geralt needs to talk to one of the prisoners, and Jethro is the only one who can help him do that. Thankfully, there's a guy in Vizima that sells fistek cheap, so getting his hands on fistek shouldn't be a problem. First, Geralt goes and talks to Thorla, as his house is right next door to the jail. He says that he has Berengar's stuff, but that his sword belonged to somebody else. Then Geralt goes and talks to Raymond. He asks him about the Salamandra and Azar Javed. and Raymond tells him that he has in fact been investigating Azar-Javed for years, which is extremely convenient, and that the city guard are also investigating the Salamandra, but the investigation has been shut down mysteriously. Geralt now has 3 different investigations going. Who in the city is working with Azar-Javed? Where is Berenger? And whose silver sword was given to him? Alright, let's tackle Berenger first. It's rumored that he's gone to the swamp. So Geralt goes there and talks to this old lady. She tells him that he went to the clay pit. And he did. He's still there, in fact. Dead on the ground. So Berenger is dead. Mystery solved. Next, the silver sword. Geralt goes and presses Thorla about where he got the silver sword from. He tells him that he got it from a middleman at the Hairy Bear Inn, a gambler. So Geralt goes to the inn to question the gambler and to pick up some cheap cocaine. Unfortunately for Geralt, the guy selling the drugs was just killed, but he learns that the Salamandra usually carry Fisstag. He questions the gambler. He tells him that he got the sword from a gardener who works at the St. Labioda's hospital. Alright, let's go to the hospital garden then, but would you look at the time? It's midnight. Let's head to the warehouse. At the warehouse, there are a bunch of Salamandra meeting with Vincent. Vincent leaves Geralt to kill them, and they all had gotten clean apparently, as none of them had Fisstag on them. Maybe Vincent was breaking up a drug equivalent of an AA meeting. An NA meeting it's in fact called. Not cool, Vincent. I'm gonna go tell Raymond that you're guilty. Anyway, Geralt goes and talks to the gardener. He tells him that he used to be a soldier and that the sword was given to him by a dying witcher named Cohen, who was fatally wounded at the Battle of Brenna. He also tells him that Shani was at the battle as a combat nurse and that she now works at the hospital. So if he has any further questions about the sword, Geralt can go and talk to Shani. But as she is at work, she can't talk now. She tells him to come to her place later. Geralt waits until midnight and rushes over to Shani's place. Conveniently, there are 2 Salamandra thugs outside her house that both drop Fisstag. Then he goes inside her house and finds her in a state of fan service. She tells him that she was with Cohen when he died, and that he can go and talk to Sultan Chive to know more about the sword. But the quest is pretty much over. The sword belonged to Cohen. Okay, now it's time to find out who's working with the Salamandra, and the list of suspects is long. Ramsmead, Kalkstein, Vivaldi, Vincent, Thaler, Levaden, Harry, Ron, Hermione, Team 7, This Dragon and Skinny Pete. Ramsmead is a criminal thug. Kalkstein is a shady alchemist. Money from Vivaldi's bank was used to pay the bail for the professor, who we know works for Azar-Javed. Vincent seems to be working with the Salamandra. Thaler is a shady merchant, and Levaden is paying for Salamandra badges. Raymond seems to be pointing his finger at everyone. Pretty weird for a guy that's been investigating the Salamandra for years. And I'm a little bit embarrassed that I didn't pick up on that and had to go back to a previous save. The fact is, the real Raymond is dead. You can find his body in the crypt in the cemetery, but you need a pass to get there, which you can get from Thaler or Vincent if you don't get on a bad side, which if you follow Raymond's quest, you do. If you go down the path of relieving Raymond, you'll lock yourself out of finding his body. Anyway, now that Geralt knows that Raymond is working for the Salamandra, and that he is in fact Azar-Javed himself, he sets a trap for him. He goes and tells everybody that he's figured out who's working with the Salamandra, and Kalkstein comes over with a plan to beat him. There is a tower in the swamp with unstable magic, so Geralt should lure Azar-Javed there, as the unstable magic would make the fight favourable for Geralt. But in order to open the tower, he needs to go and gather these stones, 10 of them, one of them inside a golem that can only be activated if there's a thunderstorm. But don't worry, you can get the druids to conjure a thunderstorm for 500 orens, the same price you paid to Levaden for one of the other stones. Anyway, Geralt is off to face Raymond, that is under the impression that Geralt isn't aware of his true identity. Geralt goes into the tower, and when he exits, Azar-Javed is ready to stab him in the back. Geralt slaps the sword out of his hand, and Azar summons fire all around him, and summons an Ifrit that Geralt deals with easily. Then he opens a portal so that the professor can join the fight, and the professor treats Azar-Javed like he's the boss. They fight, the professor cheats, knocks Geralt unconscious, which would be the perfect opportunity for them to kill him, but they escape instead. Geralt is found by Triss and brought to the trade quarter. Comb your hair, Triss. And why the f*** are you jumping Geralt? He's spoken for. And now we're in the trade quarters. Now Dandelion says during a party that Shani throws that Geralt's been missing for 5 years. So the map of where he went after he got pitchforked should look more like this. Chapter 3. Trade quarters, temple quarters, the dike and the swamp. The Flaming Rose and the Scoia'tael have gone to battle, and there are some changes to the areas you had access to in Chapter 2. New enemies and more Flaming Rose soldiers around. The chapter opens up with Triss telling Geralt about these anomalies around the city. To pinpoint the source of the anomalies, Triss needs Geralt to place these sensors throughout the city. Once the sensors have been placed, Triss finds out that the boy Alvin is the source. I mean, it did some weird stuff in Chapter 1, flying in the air, speaking in tongues, things I've been told children don't normally do. She suspects he's of elder blood, an ancestor of Lara Dorn, same as Ciri. The boy is currently held at the St. Lebioda's hospital, where Shani works, but Shani refuses to hand him over, so Geralt has to go and fetch him, as he is the one who knows Shani. As soon as Geralt enters the temple district, he is ambushed by Shani, who gives him a serious scolding for sleeping at Triss's place. I did more than just sleep, she jumped me, Geralt thinks. Were we together before I lost my memory? Or is she taking advantage of my memory loss? Shani tells Geralt to give the boy to her, as she doesn't trust Triss, and I don't blame her based on how Triss has been acting. When Geralt arrives at the hospital, he meets Dandelion, who informs him that somebody has taken the boy. But fret not, because Dandelion is on their trail, and he has figured out where they're holding him. Turns out it was the Salamandra who took the boy. After having killed the Salamandra, Geralt gets a choice of where to tell Dandelion to take the boy, to Shani's or Triss. I chose to send him to Triss, as what is Shani going to do with him? We need to figure out why he's so weird. After having sent the boy to Triss, Geralt goes and talks to her, and she tells him to smooth things over with Shani. What? I don't want to talk to Shani right now. She'll yell at me. Or worse, be really disappointed, he thinks. Then he promises Alvin a dog before he goes and talks to Shani. Whew, this is gonna suck.
I left the boy with Triss to keep him safe.
How could you? She cast a spell on you. Out of my sight. I will forget your very name.
I think that went well. Geralt talks to Triss again, and this time she tells him to put a ring on it. Triss, seriously, he's spoken for. Lay off him. All these women problems have Geralt's head spinning, and Dandelion slides in with a solution. Drinks with him and Salt and Chive. At the bar, they have a conversation equivalent to women, am I right? Triss has been invited to a party hosted by Levarden, and she wants Geralt to be a +1. At the party, Geralt runs into a bunch of important people. Thala, who I previously called a shady merchant, but he's in fact a fence and a spy master, the head of the Dimarian intelligence service, in fact. So I might have downplayed his importance a little, but he seems to be the kind of guy that wouldn't mind. Ada, the princess Geralt helped in the opening cinematic, Duet, a flaming rose dickhead, and some weird silent night. Holy night. Thala wants Geralt to go fetch a letter from a trunk in Ada's room, but as Geralt is a bit of a loot goblin, he's already got the letter. So he hands it to him. And then Geralt goes and talks to the princess, and suspects she knows something, but in order to get what she knows, he needs to give her some raw meat. So Geralt gives her some raw meat. After a very awkward sex scene, Triss tells Geralt that Levarden has a deal for him, and for Geralt to be open-minded and not be a dick about it. Levarden offers to reward Geralt, for the quest is already on, something Geralt previously agreed to. And Geralt is a dick about it. If this was Baldur's Gate 3 or another newer title, Geralt would probably say, didn't we make this deal already? But it is a little charming and funny when video games don't acknowledge some of your previous actions. I appreciate games remembering things you've done and when they don't. I think it's hilarious when an NPC you're talking to says, somebody killed all the villagers, while you're literally standing there covered in their blood. And I think it's cool when an NPC is like, I need you to go get 5 blue stones. Is there a blue stone there I see in your pocket? Hand it here then. Once the party is over and Geralt heads outside, he's greeted by a scene playing out between Duet and Thala. Thala has been surrounded by soldiers and Duet is accusing him of something. He probably says it at some point, but holy shit, do I have to listen to that guy? He's such a pompous prick. Have you said thank you once? Geralt is given a choice of either siding with Duet, who was a dick to him at the party, or Thala, who was a dick to him at the party. Or hear both sides. Thala was a dick, but Duet was a pompous dick, so Geralt sides with Thala, who tells him to meet him at the new Nevercourt later. But Geralt's got a job to do for Levarden, shut down the Salamandra. They've got two different operations going, one in the swamp and one in the sewers. Jethro has information about the sewer operation, and Veska has information about the swamp operation. Jethro is closest, so he goes to him first. Jethro looks to be drunk, as he does that drunk wobble that drunk people do in this game, and threatens Geralt with, if you don't do the job that you're already on, and you don't follow the information you came here to get, I'll throw you in the dungeon. Jethro tells Geralt to track down a drug dealer named Angus, who works out of the slums. Geralt tracks Angus down, does a very poor job of pretending to be looking for some of that blue stuff, and Angus runs off, and Geralt has to fight against the camera while chasing after him. When he turns up at Angus' home, Angus is surprisingly still not willing to talk to him, so Geralt kills him and loots the information he needs of his body. He finds the location of one of the sewer hideouts, goes there and shuts it down. There he learns the name of the sewer operation leader, Geralt, but as he didn't read the note he got, he thinks he needs to find more information about Geralt in the swamps. So he goes there and talks to Veska, who tells him to go liberate all the brickmakers. Once all the brickmakers have been liberated, Geralt learns the identity of the swamp operation leader, Roland Blainheim, and he learns that he needs an army to beat him. So he goes to the druid Hierophant to get an army. Once Roland is dead, Geralt opens his inventory and finds a note he's previously pocketed, giving him the location of the main sewer hideout. So he goes there and shuts it down. After having taken care of the Salamandra in both the sewers and the swamp, Geralt goes back to Levarden, who tells him he knows of one last cell, but it's in a sealed off area of the city. But don't worry, because he has an inside man in the city guard. Geralt needs to give him a password. The lily has yet to be engulfed in flames, and the guard will answer with, 3 lilies makes 1. Geralt goes around giving all the city guard the phrase and almost gets himself thrown in the dungeons. And then he finds the right one, and he's a funny one. Pretends not to know what Geralt is talking about. Hilarious. The guard lets Geralt into the off-limits part of the city, where he finds the last cell. He sneaks in and sees them talking to someone through a mirror. This turns out to be Radovid, the king of Redania, who was hoping to use the Salamandra as a tool, but changes his mind. Geralt picks up a communication crystal, then heads outside, where a werewolf is attacking the remaining Salamandra. This turns out to be Vincent, and yeah, he does have an American accent, so my impression of him was not only bad, it was completely wrong. Geralt gets a choice of whether to kill Vincent or let him go. I think the right answer is let Vincent go. Not all monsters deserve to die, and Vincent seems to be in control of his curse, and is using his power for good, a friendly neighborhood werewolf. And would you look at that, it paid off. Geralt gives Triss the communication crystal, and she needs a few to pinpoint the location of the last communication. Just enough time for Geralt to find an army to take on the last forces of the Salamandra. Thankfully, there are 2 armies in the city ready to fight, the Flaming Rose and the Scoia'tael. Free pickings, in other words. He goes to the closest one, the Flaming Rose, that his good friend and trusted ally Siegfried is part of. But in order to get Siegfried's help, Geralt needs to do something for Siegfried. Investigate why people are going missing in the cemetery. There he finds a talking ghoul. He points his fingers at the elves. Geralt gets to decide whether the ghoul lives or not. But as the ghoul isn't hurting anyone, Geralt lets him live. Geralt confronts the elves and they give him a choice. Kill us and the people we trapped with ghouls in the crypt dies. Geralt saves the people in the crypt, and Siegfried is very happy about it. Nice! We got our army. But oh no, someone has broken into the bank. Better get on that. Geralt turns up at the bank, and it's surrounded by soldiers. He talks to them and gets a choice of going in by himself or wait for his good friend and trusted ally that he fought a cockatrice together with, Siegfried, his brother in arms. Geralt of course chooses to wait for his best friend of all time. They go together into the bank and Siegfried is out for blood. I got your back, brother, Geralt says, and they slay all the elves together, reminiscing about the time they killed the cockatrice. They go downstairs and slay more elves, and then they go down to the vault and... they go down to the vault and...
Now piss me off!
Geralt changes his mind and sides with the Scoia'tael. They were at the bank to get some documents to give the bank back to its rightful owner, Vivaldi. Seems noble enough. Let's just forget that they were feeding people to the ghouls earlier. That's all in the past anyway. The recent past, but past nonetheless. Geralt needs to help the Scoia'tael escape. But there is one little hitch. There are a bunch of Kikimors blocking the way out, so Geralt needs to deal with them, which he does easily. Then he goes to the Navicord where Levarden, Triss and Yavin, the leader of the Scoia'tael, are planning the final assault on the Salamandra. The Flaming Rose turn up and threatens to knock down the door and arrest everybody inside. So Geralt and Yavin have to leave right now. They're teleported to the final hideout, but not before Levarden gives some encouraging words about the guy who teleported and his legs arriving 5 seconds later. Grisly stuff. At the hideout there are a lot of Salamandra, and Yavin suggests that they take out a mage sitting by himself on the right, because he has exactly what they need to summon the rest of Yavin's army. But Geralt ignores that and goes straight in, sword swinging. A mage on the right, you said? Let's take him out first. Rushing in would be stupid. They take out the mage, summon the Scoia'tael, and takes out the Salamandra thugs easily. Now there's only the Professor and Azar Javed left. Geralt approaches them, Azar escapes into the portal, and because of a spell Triss cast, the Professor can't escape. Oh, and I forgot to mention Triss cast some sort of spell. A Deus Ex Machina, I think it was called. Geralt chases down the Professor, but just as he's about to stab him to death, the Professor collapses to the floor beneath them. Thankfully, Geralt's sword landed pointy end down in the Professor's torso. He can now easily loot. Oh, f***. Got to get out of here. Oh, f***. Ada and an army of soldiers is blocking Geralt's way out. Geralt has learned that Ada is counterfeiting King Fortis, her father's seal, to rule in his stead. This is what the papers he looted for Thala proved. To get out of this tricky situation, Geralt asks for one last wish. A kiss from the princess. Oh hell no, Triss says, and teleports him away. We need a break. Welcome to the Lakeside, where you'll help a very naked dryad get a necklace back from a legendary thief turned leader of the Drowned, Sefer. You'll also be helping some poor elves held up at a cave by giving them 5 loaves of bread, even though they only gave you enough orange to buy 4. Shh. Welcome to the serene village of Murky Waters. Dandelion is here, and so is Alvin. He's been taken in by the village chief's daughter, named Alina. She's getting married soon. How nice for her. To a wealthy merchant, nonetheless, named Julian. He's from Colvert. There's also a conflict brewing with the fish people called the Voidionoi. What? Geralt goes around asking the villagers for more details. He learns that another witcher called, what? Berenger is on the case of swording conflict between the villagers and the Voidionoi. But Berenger is dead. I found him in the swamp. This can't be true. Berenger is currently at the crypt. Geralt heads to the crypt and lo and behold, there he is, Berenger. I'll be damned, that Berenger, making us think he was dead. Classic Berenger. They clear the crypt together. Berenger tells Geralt about his legendary Raven armor, and then he gives the conflict resolution contract to Geralt. After they leave the crypt, Geralt has a few questions for Berenger. Is it true that he worked with the Salamandra? Berenger confesses that it's true, but he says that he gave them nothing. And he has no more dialogue options, so Geralt needs to move on. Geralt gets back to the village to talk to Alvin at Alina's place, and Alina gets Geralt to spy on Julian. She suspects something is going on between Julian and her sister Selena. Alvin seems happy to be here, but he's having some nightmares. Thankfully, Triss has a solution. A necklace that will block the nightmares. On his way to pick up the necklace, Geralt spies on Julian and sees him blowing off Selena, so he can put Alina's mind to rest, and give Alvin his necklace, which he picked up from Dandelion at the inn. 2 birds with 1 stone. But when he turns up at Alina's house, Alvin is nowhere to be found. Alina tells him that he's at the fairy tale ruins. When Geralt exits Alina's house, another pawn on this very messy chessboard reveals itself. Adam, who's in love with Alina. Okay Adam, that's nice. Now, shoo! At the fairy tale ruins, Geralt finds Alvin and the ghost. The ghost says it's friendly and invites Geralt to a nice game of dice. Whoever wins gets Alvin. Geralt wins easily, and Alvin has one of his creepy horror movie child visions. He sees Alina dancing in the field. She asks him for help, but he can't help her. Geralt goes to inform Julian about the creepy vision, and Julian tells Geralt that Alina is in fact in the field. Great, that's wonderful. Geralt goes out to the field and finds Alina, but she's a little bit more ghostly this time around. She's been turned into a noon wraith, and she's confused, as her mind has been melded with all the other women killed in the same field. Such a lovely place this. Once Geralt has temporarily taken down the noon wraith Alina, he sees a commotion between Adam and Selena. Adam stabs Selena to death and then runs back to the village. Selena also turns into a spectre. I guess it runs in the family. The weirdest part of this is how unfazed the father is in this whole situation. Having lost both his daughters in a very short time span, has nobody told him. Now Geralt needs to find out how to send Alina's soul to the afterlife. So he consults the Lady of the Lake, the title character of the last book in the series, leading up to this game at least. The Lady of the Lake in the Witcher universe is heavily inspired by Arthurian legend. There is a Lady of the Lake in Arthurian legend as well. She's famously the one who holds Excalibur, and that connection is made even more obvious later. She tells Geralt that Alina had a valuable keepsake, a mirror of Nephthali that she consults often. Maybe if she's shown her own ghastly reflection in the mirror, she'll understand that she's dead and pass on. Geralt also tells the Lady of the Lake that he's been given the task of solving the conflict between the Vodyanoi and the villagers. And there are a few different ways he can do that, all involving killing Dagon, a huge Vodyanoi. You see, Dagon is the source of the conflict. The Vodyanoi priest tells Geralt that they usually live deep in the water, but Dagon and his followers have begun going to the surface. Some humans kill some of Dagon's followers and the Vodyanoi return the favour. Dagon needs to die for the conflict to end, but the big Vodyanoi needs to be summoned. One way he can be summoned is by killing his followers, but that would anger the Vodyanoi. A second way to summon him is by sacrificing the village's prized cow, but that will anger the villagers. The best way to solve this is by having both the villagers and the Vodyanoi offer something of value to the Lady of the Lake, and then she can offer a drop of her own blood to summon Dagon. So Geralt needs to go to Julian and the Vodyanoi priest to get something of value. From Julian he gets an alabaster statuette of a Vodyanoi. From the priest he gets a gold bracelet. And now it's time for a really awful fight. A fight that really highlights the flaws of this game's control system and combat system. So Dagon is invulnerable. So what you need to do is equip the silver sword, use light attacks and kill his adds. When an add dies, Dagon loses some health. Seems easy enough, but Dagon heals the adds periodically. So taking them down just by attacking them can take a really long time. So the best strategy is focus one add, use art so that you can take it down in one hit. The problem is, Dagon has a really f***ing large hitbox. So more often than not, you stun the add and then target Dagon over and over again, until the stun wears off. First time I played through this game, I almost quit at this fight. I can't imagine how difficult it is on high difficulties. Anyway, Dagon is dead, and Geralt can go back to dealing with Alina. Now, I mentioned that Alina has a mirror of Nephthali. Unfortunately, it's shattered, so Geralt needs to go around the field to gather its pieces, each dropping from a noon wraith. There are a few other noon wraiths around, but the ones you need to kill is stationary and highlighted on the map. Once all the pieces have been gathered, Geralt goes and gets the blacksmith to reassemble them. Then he heads out to the field again to try and show Alina her reflection. But it doesn't work. It calms her down, she's not hostile anymore, but she's not passing on. Geralt goes and talks to the hermit, and the hermit tells Geralt to go to the Lady of the Lake or a healer. As the healer is closest, and it was the Lady of the Lake who suggested the mirror, Geralt goes to the healer. And it turns out to be Abigail. Glad I saved her, it would have sucked to start over again. She tells Geralt he needs to compose a song, as spirits are highly sensitive to poetry. Thankfully Dandelion is in town, the one who wrote "Toss a coin to your witcher, a valley of plenty, a valley of plenty, oh oh."
Toss a coin to your witcher, a valley of plenty, a valley of plenty, oh.
So getting a poem or a song on short notice shouldn't be a problem. Dandelion writes his poem, more of a riddle really. And it works. Alina can pass on. When the whole Murky Waters mess is dealt with, Geralt gets a message to go see the Fisher King, and the Fisher King sends him to the Lady of the Lake. The Lady of the Lake is very happy about how everything was resolved. Geralt learns that destiny brought him back from the dead, and then he gets knighted, and gets a legendary sword, Erendite.
Geralt of Rivia, White Wolf. You traveled a long path fraught with danger. You demonstrated courage and goodness. By divine power, I hereby knight you. Face your enemies without fear. Safeguard the helpless. Never lie, even if it means your death. That is your oath. Arise a knight. Destiny will give you no rest. A long road lies ahead. I see death and blood. I see frosty chaos. Take this sword as a sign of my favor. Once the blade of a great warrior, it lay in the depths for ages, awaiting your arrival.
Milady.
Shh, Witcher. It matters not if you believe in destiny. With the blade I present you, you will complete your mission.
Thank you, milady.
Go, White Wolf, and do what must be done. May you fulfill your destiny.
The Lady of the Lake tells him that Berengar lied about not giving the witches up, and soon after Berengar comes and tells Geralt the same thing himself. Geralt gets the option of either killing Berengar or let him live. I chose to let him live, as he's regretful and he's not a threat, so he can live with what he did rather than die. Then Geralt goes back to the main. Oh shit! The Flaming Rose has arrived, and the elves have moved into the town and taken hostages. Alvin is one of the hostages, and Geralt needs to solve the conflict, so he goes and talks to the elves. Truviel, the leader of the elves, tells Geralt that they don't want to fight, they want to get out of there, and the hostages was their final option. Geralt gets a choice of helping the elves or taking Alvin and running. I chose to help. Soon after Geralt makes his decision, some rogue Flaming Rose soldiers attack, and Alvin teleports away. Apparently they're broken from the leader White Rayla. He was supposed to give Geralt some time to solve the situation. Geralt helps the elves kill the soldiers, something he does easily. Then he goes to the lakeside, where Dandelion is waiting for him at a boat. Row, row, row your boat back to Vizima, the city's on fire. What? King Thorstead has returned. And Radovid is also in Temeria. 3 kings in the same place.
Gracious sire, this is madness. You should not expose yourself to such danger. Wait here and allow me to summon a stronger force.
Nonsense, Velerad. This is my city, the capital of my kingdom. Damn it, I rule this land, and I refuse to creep around its corners.
Gracious sire!
Silence! You know you might as well wipe your ass with those intelligence reports. I want to see it with my own eyes.
Non-humans attacking! Protect the king!
For freedom! Kill the dwarf!
By your own guts, human!
It's the Grandmaster! We're saved!
You return, sire. I trust you are not too late. Your kingdom is in need.
You should know kings are never late, Jacques.
Sire, flames engulf half the city, and the blood of your subjects fills the gutters. This is no time for word games. You must act.
What do you propose?
Allow me to command your army, and the freedom to do as I see fit.
Never. Over my dead body.
It was close this time. Next time, I might arrive too late to help.
I've seen enough. Velerad, back to the castle. What is he doing here?
He dropped in. He seems to have a talent for that. What shall I do with him?
He'll come with us. I have a matter to discuss with him.
Chapter 5. Old Vizima, the Swamp Cemetery, and the Old Manor. Vizima is in flames. The battle between the Scoia'tael and the Order of the Flaming Rose has intensified. Most of the non-humans in the city took arms when the Order started killing women and children. Geralt enters Old Vizima and is met by Foltest and his cohort. Despite Geralt's alliances, he is invited to the castle. Foltest instructs Geralt to get orientated by talking to everybody present in the throne room, and then come see him in his chamber for a private matter. Geralt talks to everybody, and even though he has blown her off at every possible opportunity, didn't give her a ring when she asked to put a ring on it, and straight up told her we're just friends. Triss wants to know what they are to each other, and when Geralt makes it clear, she accepts it, and then immediately says, "Hold me, Geralt." "Seriously, Triss, we're just friends." The way Triss is written in this game is honestly horrendous. Geralt and Foltest discuss the private matter. Ada's curse is no longer dormant, as someone has messed with what kept it at bay. I wonder who it could be. Her necklace was replaced, and someone has burnt shit in her room instead of sage and myrtle. So on top of the fighting, there is a Striga loose in the city. Foltest wants Geralt to deal with it, and Geralt can do what he thinks is best. Either put Ada down, with no retaliation from Foltest, as long as it's quick and painless, or attempt to cure her. Then Foltest sends Geralt on his way. "Oh, and Geralt, before you leave, I hear that you're looking for some legendary armor. I do think this whole situation is a bit too time sensitive for you to be looking for some new gear, no?" Antionette of Toussaint is also in the throne room. She gives Geralt 900 orens, and asks him to give each of her cousins that have fled the city 300 orens, and Geralt pinky promises. Then he is ready to leave the throne room. As soon as he does, Sultan Chive approach him and asks him to help some Scoia'tael refugees get to a field hospital set up by Shani. When all the refugees are in place at the hospital, a soldier comes and informs Geralt that the Striga has been spotted in the city, at the Solitary Tower. So Geralt heads there and sees something up on the roof. Then it jumps down and it turns out to be a mutant. He kills the mutant and Kalkstein emerges from the tower. Always getting himself into sticky situation, that Kalkstein. He heard rumors about a Striga sighting in the city and came to investigate. He's happy to take the mutant though, to do some experiments on it, see how it ticks. Geralt goes back to the field hospital, and almost as soon as he arrives, the Flaming Rose kick in the door, and Geralt is thankful that he is at full health.
My day just got better.
We can finally move on. Geralt helps the Scoia'tael advance their position and beat back the Flaming Rose.
I'm tired.
Pulling them into the Scoia'tael soldiers, who I do believe were supposed to follow me, helped. Yevon kills White Rayla. Then Geralt enters the Swamp Cemetery. Such a lovely sounding place. There he actually keeps his promise of giving the three cousins their money. And then he goes and cures the Striga, and finds a book with some notes in her tomb. And some notes on the legendary armor as well. His next task is to go to the Old Manor to deal with the rest of the Salamandra. But Geralt does something else first.
Is the armor ready?
Yes. It shall serve you well.
Thank you.
Looking very nice, Geralt. Very handsome. Then he heads to the manor. But oh no, someone is blocking his path. Screw you, Devat. I knew it was you who messed with the princess. That felt good. Geralt continues to make his way to the manor, but a lot of Salamandra and mutants are in the way. White Rayla has been turned into a mutant, but Yevon and some Scoia'tael show up and help him. The way to the manor is blocked, but Yevon knows of another entrance, through the catacombs. Geralt goes through the catacombs, an unstoppable force of nature. And then it's finally time to face off against Asar Javed. Oh, and look who's here. It's Berengar, my old friend. How have you been? Berengar, my old friend. Berengar! Berengar is so tired of failing on this boss, so his superpowers are activated, and he slaps Davad in the face so hard he instantly dies. I don't know if this was a bug or a failsafe, but I was not getting through this fight. Epilogue, Temple District. Now we're in the home stretch. Yevon shows up and takes Geralt back to Vizima, where Yevon and Fortes forms an uneasy alliance. Geralt, is that some new armor you got on?
No, I don't know what you're talking about. It's the one I always had.
Vizima is in total chaos. Mutants and flaming rose soldiers roaming the street. Geralt and Yevon needs to sneak around, going through houses and down into the sewer. But not before they run into Geralt's old friend, who has hopefully forgiven him for the whole bank situation, Siegfried.
Siegfried, old friend. Bygones be bygones.
You were wrong to cross me. Stop barking, wolf, and draw your sword.
Siegfried, your words wound me. We fought a cockatrice together. We lost a good man today.
I do think Siegfried is a good person, who's been caught up in an order that he thought was good, and now is too deep. He's genuinely happy about your choice to save the people trapped with the ghouls in the crypt, rather than chasing down the Scoia'tael that trapped them there, so it's a bit sad that we had to kill him. And now for a bit of fictional history. The Order of the White Rose was a knightly order, active in the Northern Kingdoms, using several commanderies as their local strongholds, easily identified by a crimson cloak with the emblem of a white rose on their left shoulder. The knights were equipped with a helmet, armor-plated gauntlets, grooved breastplates, and carried a heavy sword. Those responsible for the Order's code, receiving new members and obtaining investitures from the aristocracy, were gathered in the chapter which was headed by the Grandmaster. Knights of the Rose were mostly noble-born gentlemen, even though later in the 1260s, many sons of wealthy merchants, tailors and general citizens ended up joining the order for 1,000 Novigrad crowns. At this time, members of the orders included Count Falvik of Muin, who served Prince Hereward of Elendar and thus gained a lot of influence and respect there, and a number of locals like Arthur Tellis joined in and took the vote. After the war with the Nilfgaard Empire and the death of Grandmaster Rudolf Valeris, the order was dying, and so a new charismatic leader, Jacques de Aldersberg, established a new order on the old, calling it the Order of the Flaming Rose. His aim was to protect people from monsters and other evils, as well as promote the belief in the eternal fire. I think the Order of the White Rose was seen as a good order, and I think Siegfried was excited to join this order when he was given the opportunity to. Unfortunately for him, it didn't turn out to be what he thought. Some refugees come to Geralt and Yevon's aid, ushering them into the house they're holed up at. And it's a whole who's who of NPCs. Vivaldi, Vesca, the Hermit, and even the talking ghoul Geralt let live. Geralt and Yevon rests up, just kidding, they barrel ahead, until they meet a massive wall in the sewer called a Zugel, and Geralt realizes that he needs some swallow to live this fight, so he has to go back to an earlier save to kill some droners to get some. Back at the Zugel there, Geralt gets to see how much the swallow potion really helps.
Annoying that the ingredients are so hard to come by.
Last mile now to the Flaming Rose Cloister, where Jacques de Aldersberg has made things very nice for his chosen few. Oh, and he's the main villain, introduced in chapter 5.
Or was he?
He tries to convince Geralt to join the cause, but Geralt ain't having it. So Jacques traps Geralt in his mind. A vision of the White Frost, showing her frozen over Vizima, where Geralt is very thankful for all the people that he saved, because holy shit, this place would have been a nightmare if all the characters were dead. And then it's time for the final fight, a bunch of stun-locking mutants. And Jacques himself goes down really easily, probably why he relies so much on ads. And then Geralt is given a choice of whether to give Jacques to the King of the Hunt or take him for himself. I think the right choice here is to defend Aldersberg against the King of the Hunt, as that's what Geralt says before you get the option, so picking the option to give Jacques to the King of the Hunt kind of crashes with what he just said. So I did not pick the right dialogue option at the end. If you were playing this game as Geralt would have, fighting the King of the Hunt would have been the right decision. This epilogue was brutal, and especially the mutants. I think my health was very low at that point, so I didn't want to lose the fight and risk having to start over. This kind of reminds me of if you want to save Melina in Elden Ring. You're going to have to inherit the Frenzied Flame and then beat Melania after also having helped Millicent. 2 very difficult fights. And then you can go and quell the flames at the Pleasure Deus Ex arena, so that you can burn down the tree yourself, not having to sacrifice Melina, and you're not trapped in the Frenzied Flame ending. The easiest option being to not fight Melania and to just go with a Frenzied Flame ending, which is pretty bleak, and Melina is not happy that you picked that ending, or just let Melina die. But Elden Ring, which is a difficult game, gives you the option to heal up before a difficult fight.
That sword is for monsters.
The final decision Geralt gets is what he's going to do next, but it's more symbolic than anything. His options are peace and quiet, my life has just begun, or I don't know. But it doesn't really matter what you choose because this happens.
Temeria and Redania are allies, thanks in no small part to you. For your toil, a worthy pouch of gold.
Your Highness. Master. Farewell, sire.
The Witcher came out in 2007. Other notable titles that came out the same year are Assassin's Creed and Mass Effect. It's developed by CD Projekt Red. The company was started back in 1996, and up until the release of The Witcher, they worked with other companies on their titles. One of the titles being Baldur's Gate. So this is the first game that they made by themselves, and it shows a little. It is a good first attempt, don't get me wrong, but gameplay wise it leaves a little bit more to be desired. There are a lot of bugs and glitches, as you can see in some of the footage I've used. This might be because I played it on a more powerful system than it's intended for. But I do think most PC gamers have systems similar to mine or even more powerful. And even if you have a weaker system than me, it's probably still more powerful than what this game is supposed to be played on. There are other titles that work perfectly well on newer systems though. This game kind of makes the bar of entry to the Witcher series quite large. If you're a gamer like me who wants to start on the first game in the series, I did jump directly onto Baldur's Gate 3. And The Witcher 1 is partially to blame for that. I gotta be honest, I hate the combat system in this game. It's extremely frustrating. 2 different swords with 3 different styles. It's a little bit too much to keep track of. It's slow and clunky. This is especially apparent in the endgame, when you need to quickly switch between swords and styles, because you're fighting enemy groups featuring all enemy types. And I don't know if I did something wrong because the group mode just kept missing. If you accidentally selected the wrong sword and style, and the right sword is set to the wrong style, it can take a very long time for you to be able to use an effective attack, and you might end up losing the encounter. If you run into an enemy group that all have some sort of stun, good luck. You're going to be stun locked for days. There are potions in the game that makes it so that you can avoid getting stunned, but getting the ingredients and even being able to brew the potion is a bit of a nightmare in my opinion. Now this probably has more to do with this being an older title, and I do think a lot of games that came out around the same time as this one had similar systems. I mean, you used to have to buy arrows if you played a hunter in World of Warcraft. Now there is another playstyle you can choose from the one that I've been using. I tried it the first time I played through this game, and it is more similar to the Witcher 2 and Witcher 3 playstyle, but it doesn't work in this game. It puts you in an over-the-shoulder mode, and in this game it's very disorientating. I do like the feel of this game though, the atmosphere, and I'm glad they made follow-up titles. And I'm excited to see what they do with the remake. This game in the style of Witcher 3 would be amazing, I think. So at the end of Witcher 1, a Witcher tried to assassinate Foltest. Geralt saves him and is drafted as his personal bodyguard. The Witcher 2 opens with Foltest having been assassinated, and Geralt in a prison cell, being the only suspect in the assassination of the king. There is questioned by Vergen Roche about the events of the battle where the king lost his life. Geralt recalls several events from the battle. First one being waking up to a naked Triss. I guess friends sleep naked together, stroking each other lovingly. Personally, this has never happened in any of my friendships.
No, Foltest and the other northern monarchs are neither the smartest nor the most refined, but they're kings, one of whom we serve.
And I'll see Foltest is summoned, protect him if need be. But once the castle falls, we leave.
Oh, they're together now. That's something. The Witcher 1 really pushes you to date Triss. And if you choose not to, like I did, not really going for any of the romance options in The Witcher 1, you get several opportunities to change your mind with Triss. And in The Witcher 2, they apparently just give you the romance option with Triss no matter what you did in The Witcher 1. They wanted to tell a story where Geralt and Triss were together. I know they're briefly together in the books, but the relationship is very one-sided. Triss having strong feelings for Geralt, and Geralt not really reciprocating those feelings. She does at one point take advantage of his amnesia to get into a relationship with him in the books, and that makes their relationships even more creepy in the games, as it kind of establishes a pattern for her. As I was planning on making a choice for Geralt that honors the books, and I'm still planning on making that choice, I didn't want Geralt and Triss to be together at any point. Geralt's been having dreams of the Wild Hunt. Dreams that are very similar to the opening of The Witcher 1. Anyways, back to the events that led to the king's death. Ada is the only legitimate heir to the Temerian throne, but she's not a suitable heir. In The Witcher 1 she counterfeited her father's seal to rule in his stead. Also, she's a Striga, and if someone messes with her curse again, it could be bad for the kingdom. She might for some players be dead, but the worst part is, she's married to Radovid, the king of Redania. And Foltest doesn't want Radovid on the Temerian throne. He has, though, sired some bastards with the wife of one of his barons, Louisa La Valette, and they have a legit claim to the throne. But the La Valette rebelled, and Foltest needs to get his children from the La Valette. During the battle, Geralt gets to climb a siege tower, and this sequence is both cool and infuriating. If you walk a little bit too close to a ladder before Foltest gets to it, you interrupt Foltest's walking pattern, and you have to wait for him to get back on track, because Foltest is part train. Geralt gets to fire a ballista, fighting soldiers between every step of the process. He kills Aryan La Valette. You can spare him, but I think the way he dies here is a fitting end for him. And then, if the battle wasn't enough, a freaking dragon swoops in, and Geralt runs straight into its flames because he didn't listen to the instructions Foltest yelled. Foltest is victorious, and Geralt is very much responsible for his victory. They run into Arthur Tales, who I previously called Arthur Tellis, who's holding Foltest's children, or at least he knows where they are, but he's refusing to tell Foltest, so Geralt uses his axe to make his priest tell him. They're in a tower across a bridge. Geralt, Foltest and Roche cross the bridge, and then the dragon attacks again, so Roche is separated from Foltest and Geralt, who continues to the tower, where they find the children guarded by a blind monk. Now this is where the previous assassin failed, making it a little bit too obvious there was going to be an assassination attempt, by killing some of the guards and just leaving them out for everybody to see. This assassin, though, has hundreds of hours in Assassin's Creed, so is wise enough to put on a disguise and hide the bodies of the guards and wait for the perfect opportunity to assassinate rather than rushing straight in. Hang on, that's how I play Assassin's Creed. And it works. Maybe I should change up my playstyle. Nah. Take that! Foltest lets his guard down, tells Geralt to hang back, and that gives the assassin a perfect opportunity to slice his throat. He pushes Foltest at Geralt, giving him time to escape, leaving Geralt standing over Foltest's corpse with a sword in his hand. Back at the jail, Geralt remembers the event of his death, in the style of a very grotesque cartoon. He remembers Yennefer and being taken away by an ashen-haired girl after being pitchforked. Geralt professes innocence to Roche, and Roche believes him, so he gives him the keys to his shackles, and tells him that he'll be at a boat waiting for him. He tells Geralt to sneak out and to not be seen, and he works for about 2 seconds, but when Geralt tries to see if he can snuff out the flames of the torch that the guard is holding, he's caught. and he abandons the stealth approach and mirrors my playstyle in Assassin's Creed. Ambassador Shillard of Nilfgaard sees Geralt skulking about and invites him to speak to Arya Levalette's mother, who does not look like she could be old enough to have a child as old looking as Arya. He looks to be in his late teens / early 20s, and she looks like she could be in her 20s or early 30s. I mean, if she's as old as she could be, and he's as young as he could be, it could work. But the character models really makes it look like they're about the same age. She asks Geralt if he is the one who killed her son, and Geralt confesses that he did, but that his death was quick, and she understands. Then Geralt makes it to the boat, and they set sail for Flotsam, and his less than stealthy approach makes this reference to Harry Potter appear in the game.
You were to sneak out, avoid anything resembling a bloodbath.
You left me the key to my manacles, not an invisibility cloak.
So all the lives of the guards that were ended prematurely was worth it. Geralt tells Triss that he remembers his death, and that he remembers a woman called Yennefer, and tells Triss to tell him everything she knows, even if it hurts her. I wonder what the assassin is doing.
Sheathe your sword, elf. I'm here to talk. Bow low. You stand before a head crowned. That of Demavend, King of Aedirn, by the grace of the gods, sovereign of the Pontar Valley, and so on.
And you are?
A friend to non-humans. I have an offer.
Speak quickly and to the point. The Arrakis will soon return, and I'd rather know all before then.
I can add several more heads to this one. Each crowned.
Go on.
Foltest to start with. I barely escaped in Aedirn. I'll need help. Access to your hideouts and maps of your secret trails, and the support of the Scoia'tael. I want no gold and have no interest in the killer's fame.
Then why do you wish them dead?
It's a long story. Your beast nabbed his neck. Time to go. Do we have a deal, elf?
Chapter 2. Flotsam. As soon as Geralt steps off the boat in Flotsam and begins to head towards the little town, he's set upon by some Scoia'tael elves led by Iorweth, the Chad-looking elf from the cinematic. Geralt tries to get the elf to hand over the Kingslayer, but it doesn't work, and the elves fire arrows at them, which Triss turns into butterflies. Thankfully nobody's allergic to butterflies. Then she picks a very inopportune time to have a nosebleed and almost faints. Triss keeps a shield around Geralt, herself and Roche. Roche picks her up and lets Geralt fight, and Triss complains about her butt being touched, while Roche doesn't make things better by commenting on how lovely her butt is. They make it to the town. The Kingslayer comes and checks up on Iorweth, and Geralt almost sees him. When they enter the town, they hear rumours of a hanging in the town square. A bard, a dwarf and some elves.
A hanging, you say? We gotta check that out. Oh, it's people I know. You gotta let them go.
Geralt has to fight a bunch of guards in a very awkward minigame. The Witcher is notorious for this. Geralt is supposed to be a superhuman, and then you put in these minigames where you have to fight some regular Joe in a bar or in the town square, and you're ready to fight as you'd normally do. And then you lose because shit, I have to push A and now B and click the mouse button really fast and QR. The two elves were hanged. Unfortunately, they chose to wear red, but Dandelion and Zoltan are free, and the town commandant of Flotsam, Loredo, invites Geralt to his house to talk in the evening. After Geralt's two friends almost get their necks snapped, Geralt, Triss, Dandelion, Zoltan and Roche sit down at the bar to catch up. Well, Roche doesn't contribute that much to the conversation. Triss and Geralt are apparently those kind of friends who invite someone to a gathering of some kind and doesn't include them. After the catch-up, the local beast attacked the village, and Geralt runs out to see what it is.
It's the Kraken! I mean Chiron.
A sorceress stops it, but not before it knocks down poor Sosek. Almost pulled him into the Pontar, something that makes some of the villagers quite upset. But Geralt uses his Jedi mind trick to make them less worried about Sosek. What happened wasn't that bad. The beast has essentially blocked Flotsam's port from the rest of the world, and the sorceress Sheila de Tanseville, advisor to Queen Surica of Kover, same place Julian is from, I wonder what he's up to, has taken the contract of getting rid of it. A merchant, simply called Merchant, doubt he will show up in the future, comes down to the port and invites Geralt to join the contract, and Geralt goes and talks to him further, and uses Axii to make him double his reward. Guess little Timmy will go hungry again. Triss pleads for Geralt not to do anything about the beast, as it would mean potentially working with Sheila, a raven-haired witch, Geralt's type. But if he absolutely has to deal with the beast, and I don't think it's possible to progress the story without dealing with it, he should brew a potion called Mungoose, by getting a mushroom that he needs to go to Cedric, the elf for the location of. It's in a cave. Cedric has a lot of dialogue options for a character with a standard elf model, but Geralt chooses not to listen to any of the extra dialogue. Did the boring character model play a role in that? Yeah. Geralt gets the mushroom, brews the potion, goes and tells Sheila that he's ready to face the beast, and walks too far down the road towards the beast's arena and triggers the cutscene that starts the fight before he can drink the potion.
How do I kill the beast, Sheila?
Ear gun! Trumpet with the ear gun!
Odd?
Ear gun! Trumpet with the ear gun!
Did you say odd?
Ear gun! Trumpet with the ear gun!
Igni?
Ear gun! Trumpet with the ear gun!
No, Erden. What will it do?
Trumpet with the ear gun!
Drop the beast? Nah, I don't believe you.
Once the beast has been dealt with, Geralt runs back to the town to do what he came here for. Find Iorweth to find the Kingslayer. But he's stopped by some Vizima bandits who wants a reward on his head. And after he's fought a Chiron, he deals with them easily. Then it's time to go see Loredo, but he's got company, Sheila. So Geralt and Roche has to wait outside. They destroy Loredo's ballista for making him wait, and then Geralt tries to sneak in, but once again he's spotted by a guard. But fret not, because the guard takes him to Loredo. So Geralt gets to talk to Loredo without Roche being present. Loredo tells him about a plan to lure Iorweth to a barge on the docks by using one of his commanders, Kieran, as bait. Kieran might know where Iorweth is, and Geralt brings Triss to talk with him. Kieran says he'll say nothing, and then tells Geralt everything about how his unit was approached by the Kingslayer, Letho, to betray Iorweth. But Kieran refused, and Letho killed his unit and injured him, making him easy to capture for Loredo's men. And then he tells Geralt about the Rose of Remembrance that can supposedly get his memory back, that he can get from some elven ruins.
Okay, let's put everything on pause and go pick flowers, Triss.
Some bandits come trying to rob the elven ruins of statues.
Can't have that.
Watch out!
Then Geralt and Triss fall through the floor into a very romantic looking room, a pool decorated with flowers, and here Geralt can flirt with Triss by telling her she needs a bath. But there's no time for that. Geralt has a Kingslayer to find. Sultan, who has definitely gotten a new voice actor, as his accent has significantly improved.
Then she breaks off the engagement, and there I was, learning a gavotte. It. Out of sight, out of mind. Farewell to Eudora, the Forge in Novigrad, and all the world's bragging rights.
Is supposedly in contact with Iorweth. That's why he was getting hanged earlier. So Geralt goes and talks to him, and Sultan leads him to where he was supposed to meet the Scoia'tael. He even knows the password.
Say the password, Sultan. Password!
The elves lead Geralt to a clearing, where he has to fight the beast from the cinematic.
I'm the stunlocking now,
And then he finally gets to meet Iorweth. He tells Iorweth that Letho is going to betray him, and Iorweth puts together a plan for Letho to reveal the truth to him by pretending Geralt captured him to deliver his head to Letho. Geralt confronts Letho about the whole regicide thing, and then Roche and some of his men attack. Iorweth asks for a sword, and Geralt slaps him. I wish they had put in a different way for you to choose the Roche path. I did the Iorweth path the last time I played this game, so I wanted to see the Roche path, and in The Witcher 3 you're kind of rewarded more for that path anyway. I couldn't find a statistic for this, but based on common player behaviour, I think most people went with the Iorweth path, because when most gamers are given a choice, they usually pick the good option. The evil endings in Baldur's Gate 3 were initially very lackluster, because the developers expected people to choose a good path through the game, and end up with one of the thousands of good endings, and most people did. When we play video games, we like to see ourselves as the hero, and not giving Iorweth a sword and just knocking him out instead is definitely not heroic. Did the option say that Geralt was going to slap him in the face on top of not giving him a sword? Nope, but that's what it did. So the game kind of punishes you for choosing an option that Geralt probably wouldn't make. I do think Geralt would have given Iorweth a sword so that he could defend himself. Anyway, Geralt and Letho end up falling through the ruins just like Geralt and Triss did earlier. And they fight in the same pool Triss could have had a bath in. Letho is a real damage sponge.
Say my name.
Stunlocker.
You're goddamn right.
Despite Geralt's best attempt at stunlocking Letho, he gets away at the end, and lets Geralt know about his plan to kidnap Triss and use her for portals. Back in Flotsam there's a party, and Loredo is paying for everything. Drinks, prostitutes, everything. But Geralt doesn't have time to get wild. He needs to find Triss. So he goes and talks to Dandelion, who invites him for drinks.
Dandelion, focus. We need to find Triss.
She was spotted in Sheila's room, so Geralt and Dandelion goes and investigates, and they find a bloody mess. A body on the floor, and some blood that doesn't belong to the body. And then they spot a peephole to the next door room. So they go there and talk to an elf prostitute who saw some of what happened. Very cop procedural of them. She saw Triss with the elf Cedric. Triss questioned a guy named Deathmold. Bet his parents really loved him. She was asking him about the regicides, and if a guy named Henselt was involved. And that's all the elf can say, because the madam pushed her away so that she could snoop. But Geralt has a clue. Cedric was there, and it was likely his blood on the ground. So he follows the blood trail and finds the elf, who tells him that Letho showed up and took Triss and forced her to portal him away to Aedirn, near the dwarven town of Vergen. And then Cedric dies. Okay, Geralt has a location.
Let's ditch this town.
But first we need to deal with Loredo. He has a spy that Roche wants. Roche puts together a nice plan. Loredo usually gets 2 prostitutes to visit his estate. Vess, one of Roche's most trusted allies, is to pose as one of the prostitutes, and she'll get Geralt into the estate. And Geralt has to sneak in and kill Loredo. Seems easy enough, but Geralt fails the stealth check once again, and has to fight his way through the whole estate. He kills Loredo, finds Vess tied up and frees her, and they hear something behind a door. They go in and find a pregnant elf, who needs to be rescued, but the water breaks, so she needs to be taken back to the room, and Geralt has to fight a bunch more guards. The elf dies, and the child loses its mother and father.
But now it's really time to get out of here, Roche. Just drop the child off with the elves.
And we're off to Aedirn. Also, this.
Where have you been, Roche?
A little problem along the way.
defeated by a Dwan. I must be getting old. What now?
Consider yourself lucky. Though you deserve torture, I lack the means, so I'll simply lop off your head. You'll die a warrior's death.
I don't regret a thing.
Impending death has addled your mind.
I don't regret that it's you. After so many years, it would be stupid to die from an accidental bolt in the eye. Or worse yet, influenza.
Damn! Lucky again, your archers approach. I defeated you once, Iorweth, and I can do it again. Remember that.
We shall see about that, friend. We shall see.
Chapter 2. Aden. The chapter opens up following Henselt, the king of Kaedweni, Ardkerrig, and the vanquisher of Nilfgaard. As he is escorted to a meeting with some lords of Aden, he is accompanied by Sheila and Deathmold.
Wrong way. Why did you not tell me, Deathmold? I should have you hanged later.
At the meeting he gets straight to the point and offers the lords nothing. He's more interested in meeting with Saskia, the Dragon Slayer, who soon after the meeting starts shows up. She challenges Henselt to a duel, and even if Henselt refuses, he has to fight her. Once Henselt has beaten Saskia, a priest approaches, spouting nonsense. So Henselt smashes his head on a big runestone, which causes the runestone to glow. We cut to Geralt and Roche approaching a military camp, and they are stopped by Zivik, the elusive, and he's holding them at... If he held a gun at them, it would be gunpoint, but he's holding a crossbow. Crosspoint? Let's go with that. He's holding them at crosspoint, telling Geralt not to move a muscle, but Geralt's spider senses are activated, and him and Roche run off. They show up at the meeting point and see the king and his men fighting some undead soldiers. Deathmold is doing some ritual.
We have to stop him. Oh no, the ritual is supposed to help us. We have to protect him.
Deathmold's ritual is successful and he puts a barrier around them, much like the barrier Triss created earlier, and he leads the group across the battlefield to the garrison where Geralt and Roche were earlier. This is where the Battle of Vergen took place. Henselt fought against Aden. During the tide of battle, it looked like a clear loss for Henselt and the Kaedweni army, but Sabrina the Witch... Wrong Sabrina. Sabrina Gleversig turned the tide, but ended up killing a lot of Henselt's men as well. After the battle, she was burned at the stake, and when she asked for mercy, the king wouldn't give it to her, so she cursed the battlefield and the king himself. And then a soldier named Yahon put her out of her misery. That will be important later. And when the king smashed the innocent priest's head against the runestone, the last condition of the curse was met, and it was activated. When everybody is settled in the garrison, Geralt goes and talks to the king. He asks the king about the curse and about Sabrina's death, and then he goes and talks to Deathmold.
Sorry Deathmold, you scare me sometimes. Did your parents call you Deathmold, or did you change your name later?
Geralt and Deathmold.
Deathmold, can you do something about that face? Cover it or something.
Figure out what they need to do to lift the curse on the king and the battlefield. To cure the king, he needs the spearhead of the spear that pierced Sabrina, held by a soldier named Yahon. To cleanse the battlefield, he needs symbols of war, tied to death, courage and faith. He needs a piece of the armor that was once worn by brave Steltkirk. He needs a Dunbanner standard, and he needs a sword that once belonged to the odious general Vandergrift. Geralt doesn't have many clues on where to get the items, but it does have a lead on a conspiracy involving square coins marked with a fish, so he goes and looks for a coin. He can overhear some soldiers looking for a coin on the ground, and I suppose he could use his Witcher medallion to find it, but when he approaches the canteen, he stumbles into an argument between Manfred and his son. He goes and asks Manfred about the argument, and he says that his son has taken up a challenge by the king to meet Letaunt, a vet, also known as a Butcher of Centaurus, in a duel to the death. Geralt suggests that he can join the son in a duel, making it 2-on-2. Geralt beats Valette and his companion easily, and then he asks Manfred about the square coins. Manfred gives him a square coin and tells him to go to the prostitute tent and present it to the madame and ask for Whistling Wendy. He should give the passphrase, "I want a smile to part the gates of paradise," but definitely don't say, I want to howl at the moon like a wolf caught in a hunter's trap, because that will get you something else. Something that I can't unsee. And then he warns him not to face Vincent Trott, as he has a special armor that protects him. On his way to the prostitute tent, Geralt runs into Civic, who asks him to find 2 missing soldiers.
Out of my way, Civic! I'm doing something important.
Wendy leads him to a hatch that leads down to a basement, and there he meets Vincent Trott, and he's wearing Steltkirk's armor. Vincent Trott thinks he's more powerful than a Witcher, and for the first try he was right. But on the second try, Geralt kills him and takes his armor. Now, there is a plot against the king, involving a few Ardanian nobles, and it also involved King Foltest. The nobles were going to overthrow the king and make it easier for Foltest to go into Kaedweni. Roche is also involved in the plot. Now, if Geralt isn't careful, he can reveal the plot to death mode. The plot was briefly put on pause after King Foltest's death, but it's up and running again, now that Roche is in Hantold's camp. There are a lot of moving parts in this military camp. The emissary of Nilfgaard is even here, and a few Nilfgaard soldiers, and that will be important later. Then Geralt has no clue what to do, as many of the quests don't seem to be relevant to the larger plot. He speaks with an elf, he speaks with Dandelion, and he goes to the brothel to question the prostitutes, and then he finally does what Civic asked him to do. Find his 2 missing soldiers. He finds them by the location of Sabrina's execution. They're sitting in a circle of candles, as monsters won't go in the candle circle. Geralt promises to get them home safe, but first he needs to thoroughly investigate the location. Back at the camp, and Civic is nowhere to be seen, and Geralt goes around the camp, outside the camp, and everywhere looking for the elusive man. Then he quits the game and loads back in, and a bastard shows up. Civic is thankful and gives Geralt his hat, making him even harder to find, and tells him of the Dun banner and how he was part of the unit that carried it. Geralt asks where the Dun banner might be now, and Civic says that it's likely on the battlefield or buried with the soldier who carried it. Geralt is at a dead end with the Dun banner, and the sword is on the other side of the battlefield, so he goes and looks for the spear. First he goes to the antique peddler, who sends him to the visionary, who sends him back to the antique peddler, bastard, who tells him he lost it to a soldier, who used it to stab a big shot elf. The spear broke and the elf kept the spearhead. The big shot elf turns out to be Iorweth, who's on the other side of the battlefield. Okay, everything he needs is on the other side of the battlefield, so he needs a way to get there without having to break the curse. So he goes to death mode.
Oh, I thought I said to cover your face or something. Holy shit.
To get something to help him cross, and death mode gives him a protective amulet. When he's about to head out of camp, Geralt runs into Sultan, who's depressed, and asks for some vodka. Best thing to do when you're depressed is to drink your sorrows away. That's what my therapist always used to say. So Geralt gives Sultan some vodka.
Just stop being sad, Sultan.
Sorry, that's not good advice. My therapist did not say that. If you're depressed, go to therapy. Sultan has a feeling we should have gone with the Iorweth path, as he belongs in Vergen, so Geralt invites him to cross with him. As soon as Sultan and Geralt enters Vergen, they're met by Yarpen Zigrin and Scalen Burden, who gives them a lot of valuable information. Well, at least Yarpen more than Scalen. The Dun banner can be found in a tomb, and Iorweth is with Saskia. Sultan says that he can get the sword.
Don't you worry, Geralt, I've got that. I'll be as stealthy as a wee mouse on a windy day. And if my stealth doesn't work, I'll lie. As good as skill and burden. Alright, I'll get the banner, you get the sword, and we'll meet in the tunnels.
To get the banner, Geralt has to kill a lot of wraiths. And then he's quizzed by a spectre about the Battle of Brenna and Vergen, and he did not look up the answers on his phone. When the banner is in hand, he goes to the tunnel to meet Sultan, and he's brought Saskia.
Sorry, Geralt, I was as loud as 6 horses in a thunderstorm, and I was caught. And then I told Saskia everything, instead of lying. Right.
Saskia insults Sultan and then hands the sword to Geralt. Last thing he needs now is a spearhead, and he asks Saskia for a meeting with Iorweth. But there is no need to meet Iorweth, because the lying bastard, Scalen Burden, has the spearhead, and Geralt has to beat him in a game of dice to get it. But Geralt has already beaten a ghost in dice, so beating Scalen shouldn't be a problem. You can throw the dice off the board, and then you lose them forever. Oh my god! Come on!
3 hours later.
Geralt gets a spearhead and heads back to the Kaedweni camp through the mist. When he arrives, he finds Roche and Vess standing over a few dead soldiers. Some Nilfgaardian soldiers were acting strange, stood by the mist waiting for something. Then a beautiful woman with black hair came through the mist carrying a small statuette in the shape of Triss. The statuette had a lovely butt, and that's all I needed to see, to know it was Triss. The Nilfgaardian fought their way to the ship, and Roche and Geralt chase after them, only to see the ship leave the port. Geralt wants to chase after them, but he still has a curse to lift, and the king won't let him go before he lifts it. Geralt and Henselt go to the execution site and have to reenact the execution, but this time, when Sabrina asks for mercy, Henselt will stab her with the spearhead. So the king's curse has been lifted, but in order to cleanse the battlefield, he needs the king's medallion, a symbol of faith, and the king promises to give it to him, but first he needs to have a drink. Geralt has to wait until midnight to talk to the king, and just as soon as he's done talking to him, 2 Witcher assassins shows up. Geralt kills one of them, and the other one runs off. Then Death Mode gets permission from the king to use necromancy on the dead Witcher so that Geralt can enter his mind, in an infuriating sequence.
Following my footsteps, the other. Following my footsteps.
I am following your footsteps.
I know, I do too. Henselt behaves as if he wants to help. Following my footsteps.
Holy shit, I am following your footsteps.
Following my footsteps.
I'm following your footsteps perfectly. Geralt eventually gets the information he needs. He learns where the Witcher assassin hideout is, and he learns who's working with the assassins, Sheila the Tanserville. First he goes to the hideout and finds the assassin that got away wounded on the floor, and then Geralt has a vision of following the wild hunt. Then he goes to cleanse the battlefield, and to do that he has to reenact events of the battle by letting spirits possess his body, and then fight a huge boss made out of parts of the battlefield. And then he has another vision of his past, learning that he saved Letho from a slizzard, and that Letho knew something about the wild hunt, so they briefly work together. After the vision, Geralt faints and wakes up in the prostitute tent 3 days later. Then he's filled in on the events he missed by Dandelion. The plot against the king was discovered, whoops, and a bunch of people have been executed by death mode. Henselt tried to force himself on Vess, and Roche is on a warpath after coming back to the camp to find all his men dead, who weren't even part of the plot. Roche and Geralt fight their way to Vergen, meets 2 trolls on the way, which Geralt spares. Vergen is under siege, and Geralt has 2 choices: go help Iorweth, who's pinned, or try and get Sheila. Geralt chooses to try and get Sheila, as that's what he came here for, but he goes through a portal as soon as he opens the door. When Geralt is about to leave, Henselt and a couple of soldiers block his path, and traps Geralt in the room with them. I'm not trapped there with you. You're trapped there with me. Geralt kills all of Henselt's soldiers and fights Henselt until Henselt gives up. Then Roche shows up, asking to finish the job so that he can have his revenge. Geralt can either spare the king or let Roche kill him. The king tries to convince them that killing him will have huge ramifications, but it won't. Lob his head off Roche, or stab him, whatever. All the roads now lead to Loc Muinne, and that's where we're heading next.
Has Radovid's messenger been by?
Yes, sir.
And what did he say?
Temeria cannot survive. The kingdom will be divided. The nobles are riled. Constable Natalis stands on shaky ground.
The loyal old Natalis will get kicked in the arse. How predictable.
They nearly reached an agreement, but without Foltest's daughter, it didn't work out.
Perfect. Are the quarters ready?
There is a little problem.
Then we must look at this problem. There's no door.
We can't lock her in a doorless cell.
I can see that, you fool. Out of my way. Uncle Deathmold will cast a tiny spell on your little house. Versa Anem. Nilfgaard's most precious gift. Clear up in here. This is Loc Muinne, not a bloody pigsty.
Chapter 3 Loc Muinne. Geralt and Roche arrive in the outskirts of Loc Muinne, where a peace talk between Temeria, Kaedweni, Nilfgaard and the Lodge of Sorceresses is held, and where the future of Temeria is going to be decided. They try and have an important conversation, but these f***ing harpies keeps interrupting.
What did you say, Roche? It's really important that you listen, Geralt. I'm laying out a plan for Temeria. Okay, so the plan is...
Against him, he should step down. That doesn't work. Kill any other king.
And then when all the kings are dead, I'll be on the throne. What? What?
When they approach the city, they see a lot of flaming rose soldiers guarding the entrance.
I'm sure this won't be a problem. I bet they've forgotten that I killed their leader and his second in command.
They haven't forgotten. They're still pissy about it. But Roche convinces them to let himself and Geralt pass. The Flaming Rose are under Radovid's command, and he is the one who's invited them to the peace talks. Roche and Geralt invite themselves to see Radovid. As they have information about who's behind the regicides, Radovid lets them in on the situation in Loc Muinne. How Deathmold has taken Foltest's daughter, Anais, and how his son Busi is presumed dead. Whoever holds Anais holds the cards at the negotiations. Radovid wants to be the one who holds the cards, so he wants Geralt and Roche to rescue Anais and hand her to him, so that he can decide the future of Temeria. Roche and Geralt agrees, and as soon as they're out of Radovid's room, one of Roche's contacts, Brigida, or Vest 2.0, comes running at them. She's chased by two bandits, but when they see Roche's sour mug, they turn heel and walk the other way. Brigida was supposed to watch Foltest's children, Roche having promised her that it wouldn't be a dangerous task. I mean, come on, Roche. The bastard children who have a legitimate claim to a highly contested throne. Of course they were going to get kidnapped or killed. Have you even seen Game of Thrones? Geralt is asked to help Brigida out of the city, and when she's out, she reveals some information about two Tarmarian lords, Kimbolt and Marvel, who might have been involved in the kidnapping/murder of Foltest's children, so that Geralt can go and catch the culprit. The first clue is a letter sent by Lord Kimbolt redirecting the children's caravan. So Geralt goes and confronts Kimbolt and walks into someone being quite cross with Kimbolt. The thug is sent off and Geralt can confront Kimbolt about a letter. Kimbolt claims the letter is a forgery and tells Geralt to go and test it if he has any doubts. After testing the letter, it turns out Kimbolt was telling the truth. The letter was a forgery. Case solved. Kimbolt is innocent.
Good to know that we can trust somebody here.
We don't have any evidence, but let's go chop Marvel's head off. When Geralt exits Kimbolt's chambers, he's approached by a messenger from the other lord, Marvel, inviting him for a chat.
Okay, let's hear him out.
Geralt takes Marvel up on his invitation and goes and talks to him. He saw Geralt going back and forth from Kimbolt's chambers, and he knows the location of the blackmailers, as he calls them, who were cross with Kimbolt earlier, and tells Geralt that Kimbolt also knows where they are and that they likely have some information valuable to Geralt, so he has to get to the blackmailers first. Geralt rushes over to the blackmailers and defends them against Kimbolt's men. Thankful for Geralt's help, the blackmailers tell Geralt that they were hired by Kimbolt to wait for a caravan and kill everybody inside. But no caravan showed up.
Kimbolt, you lying bastard! I trusted you!
Kimbolt is guilty. But hang on a minute, somebody forged the letter. The fact is, both Kimbolt and Marvel is guilty. Kimbolt had Busi killed, and Marvel helped kidnap Anais. That's at least what I think happened, but unfortunately...
There's a traitor among the Temerians.
Careful, Witcher. You'd better have evidence if you plan to accuse someone of treason.
Busi and Anais.
Yes?
Anais was kidnapped on Baron Kimbolt's orders.
Have you any proof?
The Baron hired a group of thugs. They were supposed to murder both children.
Why then did Busi alone perish?
The convoy changed course. A second group was waiting along the new route. It's possible they decided to take Anais hostage just to be sure they'd get paid.
Have you anything to confirm your claims?
One of the thugs I found is ready to testify.
Now Geralt has a choice to make. He can go after Sheila de Tanserville to try and rescue Triss. Sheila was the beautiful black-haired sorceress who came out of the mist carrying a statuette of Triss earlier, if I didn't make that clear. Or he can go and help Roche liberate Anais. Geralt chooses to help liberate the girl, and Roche gets his revenge on Deathmold.
You've broken my arm! What do you want? I'll give you anything.
You can't give back what you took from me. Cutting off your balls and slitting your throat will have to do.
No!
Ooh, that's... ooh. Now Geralt has a choice of either letting Roche hand Anais over to Radovid, as that's what he pledged to do, or convince him to give her to Constable Natalis of Temeria. As Anais's fate is pretty uncertain in Radovid's hands, Radovid might kill her, sell her off, or if Ada is barren, kill Ada and marry Anais. I think it would probably be best to hand her to Constable Natalis of Temeria. It would lessen Radovid's claim to the Temerian throne and potentially make her life a little bit longer. Then the meeting commences.
Temeria is internally divided. As Constable of Temeria, I'm in no position to speak for the whole country regarding the Council and the Conclave. I am honored to speak on Temeria's behalf before this esteemed body. But I'm only the Constable. I cannot be sure some Baron won't cancel my signature in a week.
What's your point, Constable?
I lack my country's support regarding the Council and the Conclave. Neither do I intend to seek the crown, for I've lesser blood in my veins. And as a soldier, I know my place in the ranks. In recent weeks, we have deliberated extensively in Vizima on who is to succeed to the Temerian throne. Because the fate of Foltest's last child remains unknown, we could not reach an agreement. Unable to reconcile the interests of the esteemed Temerian houses, we have no choice but to divide the country into provinces along the barony's current borders. Noble attendees, I ask you to forget the words I uttered mere moments ago. Behold, Anais la Valette. Royal blood courses through her veins. She is the rightful heir to the Temerian throne.
This child is a bastard.
The girl will go to Vizima, where she will be presented to the nobility. She is yet too young to rule, but our laws of succession make provision for such cases.
Do you think the child will ever sit on the Temerian throne?
Natalis won't let her be harmed. We did all we could.
To the matter at hand. The document describing the charter of the Council and the Conclave is, as previously ascertained, an exact copy of the charter found in the ruins on Thanet Island. The more important question relates to the Conclave and its power to designate royal advisors. Today, randomly chosen mages and sorceresses reside at many courts. However, in the time of the previous Conclave, such persons were carefully chosen.
Why shouldn't we pick our own advisors?
These individuals bear great responsibility, Your Majesty. The Conclave needs to be certain they are competent.
And that they will keep the Conclave's interests in mind.
Obviously, sire. The Conclave's chief interest is the well-being and prosperity of the northern kingdoms. The document has been signed by every member of the Conclave we have proposed, as well as by all but one of the designated advisors. We await only Sheila de Tanserville's signature.
Without our royal seals, you shall be allowed to designate advisors to cowherds at most.
That is true, Your Majesty.
My kings, before you sign this document, please hear me out.
Excellency, with all due respect, this matter does not concern Nilfgaard in the least.
I am here at King Henselt's bidding. Will you deny my right to speak?
What is the meaning of this?
This man tried to kill me this morning. He attempted to take an Imperial envoy's life in your lands.
I presume he was interrogated.
He confessed. Foltest and Demiven died by his hand. He also revealed the identity of his employers.
Sorceresses. They helped me with my assassinations.
Speak on.
The Lodge of Sorceresses sought to remove those rulers who acted against the will of mages.
Lodge of Sorceresses?
We have compiled a list. Philippa Eilhart, Margarita Loantil, Triss Merigold, Kira Metz, Francesca Findaber, Ida Emin, and finally, Sheila de Tanzaville. To my deepest regret, 2 Nilfgaardian sorceresses, Siravar Alahid and Fringa de Vigo, were also members. The Emperor will deal with them accordingly.
Your Majesty, what's the meaning of this?
Arrest them all. Your document will have to wait, honorable sorcerers.
You have no right.
Surrender now if you don't want another massacre, this time in Loc Muinne. A court of law will reveal the traitors.
Now the alternative to this is, Geralt saves Triss, and she'll accuse the Tanzaville and the members of the lodge that helped her of the regicide plot, sparing some of the mages and sorceresses caught up in the massacre. Does this change the fate of any important character? Not that I'm aware of, but Anais will have a lot darker fate if she's not saved. I don't know what Death Mold's plans for her are. Probably not good. So it's a choice between protecting a child that can't defend herself and a few mages and sorceresses who can. If they just don't pop all their cooldowns at once, they'll be fine. Geralt chases after Sheila and catches up to her, but she's about to teleport and has a barrier around her. She tells him of the Nilfgaardian plot, then she tries to teleport away. But someone has messed with one of the teleportation crystals, and Geralt can choose to help her or let her explode. Making the decision to not help someone who will die if you don't help them is still murder, so Geralt helps her, also she's hot. Had she looked more like Death Mold, her fate might have been a little bit different. Ooh. Then the dragon slams its head through the tower, and Geralt has to slap its nose. Then it destroys the tower a little bit more, and Geralt has to climb to the top of the tower and continue slapping its nose. When he's slapped its nose enough, Geralt jumps on top of the dragon and stabs it in the neck, and then it has a bit of a rough landing. Unfortunately, that pointy tree spike was just in the spot where it landed. After he has beaten the dragon, he gets a choice of killing it or not. The dragon is in fact Saskia, the Dragon Slayer. She never slew a dragon, she was the dragon. But Geralt chooses not to kill her, so that plot twist was never revealed. I do think you get the choice to change your mind if you choose to kill her. I don't know if she's naked though, so I might not have been able to show it anyway, but Geralt doesn't kill dragons. Radovid and the Flaming Rose slaughter a bunch of mages and sorceresses, and Geralt has to face Letho, who's waiting for him. Letho tells Geralt how he helped save Yennefer, who has also lost her memory. He tells him that the Witcher school he's from seems specifically made to face the Wild Hunt, and that he was approached by Emeris of Nilfgaard to destabilize the northern kingdoms, making it easier for Nilfgaard to invade. No matter what you do in this game, you kind of end up with the same outcome. The only difference as you're making is how many unnamed mages remains alive when Letho saved Triss from the Nilfgaardians. Nilfgaard invades. I think the northern kingdoms were destabilized enough after Forta's death, and they likely would have fallen to Nilfgaard anyway. Letho says that it wasn't necessary to kill Henselt, so Henselt's threats of great repercussions were completely empty. His death was utterly meaningless. Well, it felt good for Roche though. Geralt lets Letho go. He doesn't pose a threat anymore, and killing him won't make a difference. It would probably make Roche a little bit angry that he let him go, but he's always angry. The Witcher 2 is definitely an improvement on The Witcher 1. It came out in 2011. Other notable titles: Skyrim, Portal 2, and Uncharted 3. There are other notable titles the same year, but I can't go through all of them. It provided a lot of the DNA that made Witcher 3. And The Witcher 3 kind of spawned the modern RPG. It kind of feels like a modern game, especially after playing The Witcher 1. But it has some clear limitations. You can't jump, you can't run over edges, as you're stopped by invisible walls, and if there's a tiny branch in the road, you can't walk over it. But these are more fun, charming things that you get used to as you play. But there are some issues and bugs with this game, and some infuriating sequences, like the one where you enter the mind of the dead Witcher. I was walking perfectly in the other Witcher's footsteps, but I don't know if I was walking too close to him, or if some of the traps were completely invisible, or if they had a bigger area of effect than it looked like. But that sequence took way longer than it had to. Other than that, sometimes a quest marker is in a completely different location than where you're supposed to go. But that happens even in titles from 2025. And it happens every other week in the World of Warcraft. So I can't really blame The Witcher 2 for that. But even with those things, it's a lot easier to get through The Witcher 2 than it is The Witcher 1. I always had what I needed to create potions, if I needed them, from merchants and from chests, so they probably felt like the ingredients were a little bit too hard to come by in The Witcher 1 and changed it. And you no longer have to drag the mouse to the edge of the screen to turn the camera. I don't know if there was an option for you to not have to do that in The Witcher 1, but I didn't find it. I would recommend playing The Witcher 2 before playing The Witcher 3 if you're thinking of playing The Witcher games and you don't know where to start. and then he immediately embarrasses himself in front of the Emperor. The Emperor wants Geralt to find his daughter Cirilla. Okay, no, Geralt, meeting's over. Be off.